All right, welcome everybody to Peter White Public Library. My name is Marty Ackitts and I'm the Adult Programming Coordinator for the library. And I just have one group that I need to thank tonight, and that is the Friends of Peter White Public Library. If you are watching this program on YouTube right now or after the fact, the Friends of Peter White Public Library are the group that purchased all of our live streaming equipment that allows us to live stream all of these wonderful programs from the community room. So thank you, friends. Yes. So I just have a couple things I'm going to remind people of that are upcoming this week and next week. On Friday, that is the start of the 3-day International Chapbook Competition. So if you signed up for that, you have, that starts at 6 p.m. on Friday, runs through Monday at 6 p.m., and you have that time to write between 18 and 40 pages of poetry, which is a crazy, crazy kind of challenge. But if you have signed up for that, please be aware of that and plan accordingly for your weekend. And then next week, we have a really wonderful few things happening. One of those things is an author reading by Philip Sterling, who is the president of the Poetry Society of Michigan, but he just released an essay collection called Lessons in Geography, which focuses on the geography of place, the forest, shores, and lakes of Michigan. And Philip is going to be here on Wednesday night, September 4th, to do a reading in the Shiras room. And then I will just do one more event, and that event is Northwards and Music is going to be doing another show here, and that's going to be not next Monday, but the following Monday, September 9th. So B.G. Bradley and his crew will be back here to entertain you, starting at 6:30 p.m. And by the way, another little reminder that all events starting in September will be beginning at 6:30 instead of 7 p.m. So make sure that you are aware of that. But I'm here to introduce our speaker for tonight, and that is Angie Jackson, who is the traveling Elixer fixer. I love that. I don't know who came up with that, but it's fantastic. It's so good. It's so good. Angie has written a book titled Drink the Wild, Recipes from a Kitchen Witch for the Spirited and Sober Soul. And Angie is a graduate of the Academy of Spirits and Fine Service, Bar Smart's Advanced Bar Education Program, and the Advanced Culinary Mixology Academy. And she has opened many distilleries and throughout the state of Michigan. She has taught I was just talking with her before the show began, just talking how she was a teacher in Chicago for many, many years as well. So we are so fortunate to have her here at Peter White Public Library. Please give a good, warm Peter White Public Library welcome to Angie Jackson.
Hey, Marty. Thank you so much, everybody, for having me today. I have had a wonderful trip up here. Again, my name is Angie Jackson. I'm known as the Traveling Elixir Fixer, which is a less pretentious term for a master culinary mixologist. I began my bar career back in 1996. It's been, probably 30 years now that I have been in the industry. Back in 2000, I ended up moving to Chicago, went to school for 4 years, and trust me, my parents are very proud over what I do for a living. I went back to school, studied. I was lucky enough to attend the James Beard Awards back in 2010. I was asked to come shake cocktails in New York City, and after that I thought, what do I want to do? Well, I knew that we were having a wonderful movement that was getting ready to happen in the state. I knew that craft breweries were already there, but I had a feeling that craft distilleries were going to mushroom and explode. Well, they did, because at that time, in 2012, there were 4 distilleries in the state of Michigan. And today, there are over 70 plus. So in that short amount of time, I was lucky enough to open several of them, prepare some beverage programs for them all. And in 2012, I also had a wonderful thing that kind of brought me around to writing the book, Drink the Wild. I was in I had already moved back to Kalamazoo, and I had Edible Michiana magazine reach out to me and ask me if I would be willing to do a woods to glass cocktail demonstration at Fernwood Botanic Gardens down in Niles. And I said, game on, let's do this. Well, I had never worked with a forager before, and they had informed me that they were hiring a professional forager that was going to go out into the woods and gather the ingredients that I was to use for the drinks. And I said, okay. Well, the forager sent me a list of everything, and a lot of the ingredients I noticed were actually used in my profession as mixology. They were contained in bitters, and they were also in fortified wines, also known as vermouth, or you'd have it in amaros or digestifs. And many of these recipes are coveted that are not shared with the public, but have been passed down through centuries in the 1600s, the 1700s. The nuns and the priests that you would find making these wonderful cordials and liqueurs, and like I mentioned, the digestifs and amaros, and realizing that these had medicinal properties to them. So taking you back a little ways, the term cocktail comes to us from 1803 from the New York Book and Repository magazine, and it read, had a cocktail, kind of a bittered sling, great for the head. So prior to cocktails, we had juleps, cups, daisies, slings, any of those, and those were known as medicinal purposes. Even during Prohibition, if you were sick, they were still making medicinal whiskey. So all you had to do was go to the doctor and go, I don't feel very well, wink, wink. And he wrote you a prescription, and you went to the pharmacy, and the pharmacist looked at your prescription, and you were given a pint of whiskey as medicinal purposes. During the holidays, the pharmacies were open 24/7. Even the baby who had croup got a pint. Everybody, it was just considered that was medicinal. Even leading into the term cocktail, the cocktail is all American. It was invented, some say out of New Orleans, some say it was the mint julep, some say it was the Sazerac. But early bartenders and pharmacists actually worked together and were creating bitters that were added to drinks to make you feel better. So you'll find a lot of bitters out there, like Antoine Amédée Peychaud comes out of New Orleans. He had a specific style of bitters that was used in one of the first cocktails ever created, the Sazerac. Angostura bitters have been around even a little longer, that actually transpired from Trinidad to Venezuela. And you think about Angostura bitters, that is a staple of drinks, and a lot of people have added Angostura to carbonated beverage to calm the stomach down. So what happened was I started working with foragers, because I was asking foragers, okay, so, what is this plant? And they were telling me about the medicine that they were making with it, and what they were using Everclear. And I went, oh, sweetheart, that is bottom shelf sad swill. You don't want to use that, because there's heads and there's tails in there, and there's congeners, there's esters, there's fusel oils. That is something, we're not 18 to 21 anymore. We can't handle that, So, and especially seeing as I was seeing people out foraging and ethically, picking these things and using Everclear, I'm like, okay. I'm like, do you know about grains? None of them really knew how flavored of grains could be used with their foraging and herbalism. So a good example would be like, certain styles of vodka out there. A wheat vodka would have a sweet wheat buttercream flavor. Think of that. Corn is bittersweet. It's bittersweet until you add the butter and the salt to it. Think of rye as clean crisp with hints of pepper and spice. Think of barley as cereal. Anytime I smell like malted barley, it reminds me of the 70s. I'm a true Gen X kid right here. I said, I smelled it and I went, smells like Sugar Smacks. Reminded me of Saturday morning cartoons right there, but malted barley would have a flavor profile such as that. If you think of grape, it's going to be fruit-forward flavor at that point. So I started teaching herbalists and foragers about about spirits and how they could use that, and not necessarily that they have to use only vodka. I started saying you could use gin, you can use whiskey for different things out there. So for those attending today, you got something out of the book. Drink the Wilds. This is my recipes from the apothecary of me, a kitchen witch for the spirited and sober souls. Now, a kitchen witch. Let me take you back to when I learned about that. I was in high school, and my mom worked at the mole hole. And I came home from school, in high school, and I looked in the kitchen window, and I saw a witch hanging. But it was April. And I thought, I said, Mom, what's up with the witch in the window? And she goes, oh, that's a kitchen witch. And I'm like, okay, what is that all about? Well, in Scandinavian and Norwegian culture, a kitchen witch, a small puppet doll, was hung in the window and was meant to give you good luck in the kitchen. It was meant to keep your pots from boiling. Your bread will always rise, You will always have exactly the right amount of ingredients that you need to make something. So I'm like, okay, all right. So as I began my bar career, people, Angie, you're a witch, because of me crafting and creating drinks that they had never had before. So I'm like, okay. So what happened was I went to my mom. I said, Mom, I think I'm a witch. She goes, oh, of course you are, honey. She said, your grandmother was, and here's a Lorena McKennitt cassette tape. Go listen to that, And I'm like, okay, sweet. So that kind of laid in it, but it's like the magic, It's using your tools and the tools that you use. And you know what? There's no right or wrong tool. You choose what you want to use and what feels good to you. Perhaps it was passed down from your grandmother or your great-grandmother or your mom. Or perhaps you found it in, an antique store. I never buy anything new. Why? Because they don't make it as good as they do like they did in the 1940s. You find the strainers and things like that. Go to the antique stores. Go to the estate sales. Go to the resale shops. Because anything new, it's going to break within a couple of weeks. How do I know? Because I've tried it and I've broken them all. And trust me, it's just not worth it. Go get the old school stuff that has energy in it. So basically, a lot of folks were teaching me about recipes that have been handed down from generations of what our grandparents, of what our great-grandparents did. How to stay healthy ahead of the game. Now, there's nothing wrong with Western medicine. It's all good. I get it. Because trust me, if I have a migraine, you can bet I'm grabbing 4 ibuprofen. That is the way, because I know that cinnamon isn't going to cut it. But you got to do what you got to do, and there's certain things that have been proven that, are likely to help you. And with cold and flu season right now, school started again. What happens? The crud goblins come back out with your kid. They say at daycare it takes half your pay and we're going to give you the crud. Okay. Gee, that's not a very fair trade. So we're all trying to, do our best to, have a better wellness to things. So by taking a lot of these folk recipes, that known as granny medicine, granny magic, you would hear that. By making them a little better. So what we had today was, featured in the book, Drink the Wild, is a lime lemongrass switzel. And switzel actually dates back to the 1600s in the Caribbean. And it was meant for folks who are, out in the heat, like today, 100 degrees out there. I'm like, really? I'm in the UP. Why is this happening? We don't even have this in Kalamazoo. No, we do. But when it's that hot, your body needs to help with the pH. You can't just drink straight water. You might get sick. So this drink comes from the Caribbean, and it contained water, apple cider vinegar, ginger, and molasses. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to make this drink. And I tried it, and I'm like, oh, my God, that's awful. Why would anybody want to drink that? And it had these huge, heavy flavors for summer. You think molasses and ginger? Really? I'm like, that just screams Christmas. Why would anybody want to do that? But they had what they had to make it work. So, apple cider vinegar would help with the pH and to balance in your body, molasses to sweeten up, and ginger to calm your stomach down. So I thought, well, in the heat, I wanted to change some things. So what I did was I flipped the molasses out for local honey. You know, we gotta keep our eyes out on the bees and keep them happy. And it's nothing better than supporting a local apiary, you know, out there. So I flipped the molasses out for honey. The ginger root, hey, that's the best thing that you can have for an upset stomach. And I thought, well, if you're out there in the sun, you want it to taste like the sun as far as I'm concerned. So I added cardamom pods. You know, cardamom is great for belly bloat, you know, if you have that. But the other thing that I added that I hid in this drink, because people were coming to me and saying, can you make turmeric taste better? And I'm like, it tastes like dirt. And I'm like, oh, well, it's earthy. Yes, it is. So what I do is I hide it in there. So turmeric is also added to mine, as well as the cardamom pods, lime zest, lime juice, and lemongrass. I wanted it to taste like the sun, and it's an all-natural Gatorade. It's great for hot 100-degree days, and it's also great if you have the flu. It's definitely going to bring you back, you know, to hydrate you. You know how many pregnant mamas call me? I'm getting ready to deliver. I need a gallon of that. Okay, you know, I mean, and they have it during their labor to keep them hydrated. It's amazing how many people really enjoy that recipe. So my job was to write this book and bring in the seasonal, you know, because we here in Michigan, we have incredible flora and fauna. I mean, it is amazing the natural resources we have here. On top of the fact that we are number 2 in the United States of growing commodities. We're only number 2 to California. And the way I look at it, we should be number 1. Because California, how many Michigans can you fit in California? A lot. How long is our growing season? Not like theirs. So we should be number 1 as far as I'm concerned. But we are number 2. So let's utilize what we have outside to, you know, make ourselves better. So that's where Drink the Wild came into play. I wrote this one, the big book, about 3 years ago. And it was my tribute to the foragers and Kalamazoo. You know, giving tribute to a lot of the bars, the foragers, drinking through the seasons of just loving all over what we have to offer out there. So, I wrote this about 3 years ago, and then over the summer, this past September, at the Great Lakes Herb Fair, I was presenting, and I met the incredible herbalist Rosemary Gladstar. She actually wrote many books. She is like the grandmother of modern herbalism. She started the first herb school in California, founded Mountain Rose Herbs to supply the herbs to her students. If anybody has had traditional medicinal teas, she founded those, and she wrote many books. She's also the author of Medicinal Herbs. So I got to meet Rosemary this past September, and we were talking, and she tried my bitters. Because if there's one thing that a mixologist, an alchemist, a kitchen witch, we are going to be looking to creating some beautiful products out there that actually taste good and are medicinal for you. So I had Rosemary try my black walnut bitters, and she was like, "Oh, you're good." And I'm like, "Thanks," you know. But on top of that, she was looking at my book and she goes, "You brought something around that no one has done quite yet. You're bringing in herbalism, you're bringing in foraging, you're bringing in mixology. Sure, there are wild-crafted cocktail books out there and things like that, but by looking at, you know, the apothecary, of stocking your apothecary and having certain syrups available for you on top of teas and things like that that will actually aid and assist you into feeling better." One of the biggest things that I find in here is I have an incredible recipe for ginger honey syrup. And I use it, if I could only have one syrup in my arsenal of mixology kits, I want the ginger honey syrup. Because I can make just about every cocktail with a beautiful twist with it. I can make an old-fashioned. I can make a sidecar. I can make a Tom Collins. I mean, there's so much that I can. And for those who do zero proof, no spirit, alcohol-free, I have always believed in the non-alcoholic drink. I'm the elixir fixer for a reason. I'm not the drink lady. I'm not the cocktail queen. I believe that in the elixir of life and the flavors, and you should have something that tantalizes your taste buds and makes you want to come back for more, that isn't sickly sweet and off of a bad soda gun. The Peter Rabbit or the Shirley Temple, that's all good when you're 5, but when you're 35 or, whatever age, it just doesn't quite work that well. So, and if you love a Shirley Temple, hey, knock yourself out. Nothing wrong with that. But we should be able to have zero-proof options available. And I know a lot of Gen Zers do not want to drink. That this isn't, this gives them an opportunity to actually have the wellness incorporated into their beverage programs. So what I did was I decided I was going to start rewriting the book because I wrote it for Kalamazoo. I never had any intention of putting it out further than that. But when I'm told, okay, you're onto something here, honey, you got some great recipes, I decided to go ahead and I'm rewriting the original Drink the Wild with my co-author, Austin Wines. So in the meantime, I had people, I can't find your book, I can't find your book, I can't find your book, and I'm like, okay. So I made a smaller version of it, focusing on the apothecary recipes that I keep in my own home apothecary to keep me well. And then this past, about 6 months ago, I came out with its companion, The Bittered Wild, and this is about bitters and tinctures and what to do and how to make them, because if there's one thing I've noticed, a big trend is people are looking at gut health these days. Our stressors of being human beings in our world is really heavy right now. And we have the stress in our neck. We have the stress in our shoulders. What happens next? It goes down to the belly. And so a lot of people are looking to bitters to help with the belly. And that's what they were originally for. We stole them. The mixologists, they were meant to be added to drinks. Think of it as the salt and pepper of drinks. When you add it, that is where your flavors and your spices and your wonderful nuances, that's what brings the drink together. The anatomy of a cocktail is 4 ingredients. It is spirit, sugar, bitters, and water. Where in food, we have salt, fat, acid, heat with the 4. Drinks, we have spirit, sugar, bitters, water. If you're zero proof, you can remove the spirit and we can come up with something else, and chances are probably it would be some form of wild crafted tea. Punch predates the cocktail by a couple hundred years and actually is a derivative of the East Indian Hindu word panch, meaning 5 ingredients. So originally a punch was spirit, tea, sugar, bitters, water, the 5 ingredients. And a Victorian punch will put you on the floor, trust me. They were potent things out there. So that is where that whole thing would come from. So coming back to the Drink the Wild, a couple of things in here. Number one, I start with broadleaf plantain, and I hope that you folks know what plantain is. It's on the ground outside. It's everywhere. You want to talk about, you can make a broadleaf plantain salve. If you have a bug bite, a really bad sting, take a leaf of the plantain, chew it up, make it into a poultice with that, and put it on your bug bite. Put a little piece of tape on it. About 30 minutes later, your bug bite is going to be non-existent at that point. So it's always good to have that one on hand. And as I say, I'm not a doctor, number one. Number two, always check before you consume anything. That includes mushrooms and plants. Even though we can outside drink and eat more than we can't, it's always good to get a cross-check just to make sure that you're doing the right thing. And there's lots of wonderful avenues that you can look for. There are apps on your phone, Google Lens. There are social media groups that you can belong to that can help you and guide you as you're learning, because it's a forever learning experience. You're never stopping, trust me. I'm still learning. But in the springtime, you emerge from winter. You're like, I've been in the house 6 months. I need to get outside, So you come outside, and what do you see? Cleavers. Cleavers are great. They're a wonderful spring. So I've included a cleaver tonic that is like a wonderful cleansing of spring that you're ready, kind of detoxifying your body which you're supposed to rest during the winter. You need to be in a blanket and drinking tea and looking outside and going, yeah, it's pretty out there, but I'm going to stay in here. Unless you're a winter sports person, I'm all about that, but I'm the one that's sitting around going, yeah, they look like they're having fun, but I'm going to sit in here and enjoy. So when I come outside, I'm ready to experience spring. I want to taste spring. That is what Cleaver Tonic is all about. When you make this and you add the little extra components, it's like tasting spring. People have tasted it and gone, oh, I feel great. So that's one thing to always keep in mind, with the seasons especially. We're getting ready to come up into, I know we're a little early, but the holiday season is around the corner, and the stores are already promoting it. 3 weeks ago, I went into the grocery store, and they had Halloween candy. I'm like, don't go there yet. We have not even hit autumn equinox, and you're bringing this out. I'm sorry. You keep that pumpkin spice. There's no such thing as pumpkin spice. You keep that away from me. I want to experience things in the meantime, and I don't want that candy yet. But saying that, cranberries. We're going to be inundated with cranberries from Thanksgiving all the way till about mid-January. And what's going to happen? You're going to go down in your refrigerator crisper, and you're going to open it by the end of January, and there's going to be a half a bag of cranberries in there, and they're still going to be good. And you're going to go, oh, I'm cranberried out. I don't want to throw that away, though. What do? Make cranberry bitters. Awesome, because then you got them year-round at that point. You take that half bag, combine that with a couple of things. My recipe includes cinnamon, dried ginger, dried gentian root. When I refer to gentian root, that's the bitter component. That's where things start working with the digestion, with what you have going on. Also has dried orange and lemon peel. I chose to use a rye vodka with mine because of the spice. I wanted that little bit of spice just to dance and play with the rest of what was going on in there. If you want it non-alcoholic, you can make it with apple cider vinegar if you choose to do that, or you can make it with vegetable glycerin. I think y'all have a food co-op, and I'm sure a health food store. I can guarantee you can probably get the vegetable glycerin there. If not, you can order it on Amazon, because I need to order like gallons at a time because of me teaching and things like that. But you may not need that much, but you can make them with those. That's not a problem. And then you have cranberry, because cranberries all year round. It's not necessarily just celebrated during the fall and winter, but you can have it out there, and it'll just be wonderful to add to your sparkling or to your cocktail. Or if you just want a little extra health benefit going on, you can just do it straight up without even worrying about anything else. My elderberry syrup recipe. I'm sure a lot of you know about elderberry, and you have it growing everywhere around here. Elderberry is great for boosting the immune system. If you have a cold or a flu, we usually have like a symptom that might happen ahead of time. You're like, oh God, I'm getting sick. You just know. Mine happens to be in the back of the throat and one nasal passage. And when I start feeling that, I'm like, oh, no. I keep my spiced elderberry syrup on hand at all times, and I start downing 4 tablespoons a day, and usually within a day to 24 to 48 hours, I'm back to 100%. It has been known to cut symptoms down in half. So with my elderberry syrup, I have a lot of mamas come to me. I've made them before. Oh my God, my kid is so sick. Okay, here's a jar, elderberry syrup. They're back on the road. Like I said, it's school season and the crud goblins are coming. Had this on hand, and they say, come back a couple weeks later, the other kid's sick now, we need another jar. My kid is refusing to try anything on the shelf because they don't like it, and they only want Angie's juice. Okay, all right, well, then we did the right thing. But what I did was I wanted it to taste good, number one, because I've tasted some elderberry syrups on the counter, and I'm like, well, that's awful. Why would anybody want to even continue to take that? And some of the, there are elderberry gummies out there. I've seen things. Throw caution to the wind. Make sure that your company that you're buying from is legit and they're not adding some other things to it. But mine contains cinnamon. Cinnamon is great for anti-inflammatory, and it kind of added a little spice and a little magic to the flat, earthy flavor profile of elderberry. I added cardamom pods again. I'm taking that from the East Hindu, Ayurvedic wellness. Cardamom, takes the belly bloat away is a good way to put it. Ginger root, same thing. I mean, ginger is like the bartender's ketchup. Ginger can go with just about anything out there, and we have used the magical spice in creating into syrups and things like that with our, cocktails that we're creating in beverage programs. It just goes with everything, but it is great. Lemon peel, that's also in this. We all know that the citrus that is forming off of that, the citrus is just a great thing to have. I also added whole cloves. People don't realize actually how healthy and, great cloves are for you. You got a toothache? No one gets a bad tooth 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. It is always on the weekend at 2 a.m. What I suggest is, take black tea, and take some crushed cloves, add it to the black tea, wet, and bite down on it, and it'll hold you over until at least, they open up and can get you in. But cloves has great antiseptic, antifungal properties that can help you get better. And I added a little bit of star anise just for flavoring. Of those flavors that I told you about, they're big and bold. By adding just that little bit of star anise to it makes people think, wow, there's something a little extra in here, but I can't put my finger on it. So that's perfect to add to it. I make mine with a straight bourbon. I've actually made a highball with, the elderberry syrup. You can add that, and anything that has bubbles is construed as a highball. But you'll see people who will say, I want a Jack and ginger. You'll see that quite. And ginger ale, hey, Vernors, we all... 100 years in the United States, and you know what? I will fight any Texan out there who says that Dr. Pepper was first, because it wasn't. We beat you by a year. Interesting story, too. If you really want to go down a rabbit hole, go look up the history of Vernors and hear the whole story about how James Verner started that company and took it to the next level. Either you're a lover of Vernors or you're a hate it, one of the two. It's super spicy. I love it. And it has a gnome on it. Come on, you gotta love any soda out there that has a gnome on the label. I'm like, rock on, dude. So by taking the elderberry syrup, I can take it straight, or I can add it to ginger ale. That's just going to just bring that ginger profile up a little bit more in the syrup. You can add it to toddies as well. I'm a firm believer that toddies can be made with anything, whiskey, but you can make them with gin. I tell people all the time that gin was invented by a Dutch pharmacist in the 1600s to aid in gastrointestinal issues. Juniper berry is great for that, but all the botanicals that are in gin are good for you. There's medicinal purposes behind all of that. So if you do have a hot tea, add gin to it with the ginger honey syrup and lemon, and that's cheaper than a copay. They're just going to send you home. No, I'm just kidding, but I'm being, somewhat honest, but, this is something that's preventative that you can take care of yourself with it a little bit more. My Elixer Bitters number 2 is one of my most famous flavor profiles out there. Everybody says, well, what happened to Elixir Bitters number 1? I'm like, there never was one. I said, I just did it to mess with people. And I'm being honest. I never had a number 1, but number 2 just felt right. Elixir Bitters number 2, kind of like Chanel number 5, But again, these flavors, you might see a common denominator here. Ginger, cardamom, cinnamon, they're all good for you. And boy, this Elixir Bitters number 2 is great in drinks. Makes it unbelievable old-fashioned with the ginger honey syrup. You combine those two with some Michigan-grown grain of a good bourbon out there, and boy, things are going to change. You can call me later and thank me. You're going to love all over that one right there. As I mentioned, my ginger honey syrup, you'll see a correlation through the whole book as well, that, a lot of it, you can use this syrup through it. As I mentioned, many of the cocktails that you can make, but I love this in tea. I also love it with calming the stomach down. I can immediately take it, especially if you have a sore throat, upset stomach. pregnant mamas come for me. If they're not coming for the elderberry or the Switzel, they're coming for the ginger honey syrup. I need that. I am not well. Okay, no problem. They can take that, an easy spoonful without a problem, and they're off and running and happy campers from there. I also have a recipe for a shrub. For those that don't know what a shrub is, it is a vinegar-based drink. And these date back to Victorian times as well. This was a great way to preserve fruit, and a drinking vinegar is a good way to put it. So this one, most of them, when you think of fruit, you think of, sweet, out there. That you'll find some shrubs on shelves. I can guarantee your health food store probably has a shrub, a drinking vinegar on there with flavorings. But this one, I call it the glass onion. And why? I happen to use shallots in this. One night, I was at home, it was storming, we were watching some really bad B horror films, and out came a snack. And the snack was, you ready for this? Triscuits, Boursin cheese, and pears. And I tasted it, and I'm like, oh my, that is delicious. I'm going to make a drink and do that. So I did. So what I did was add the apple cider vinegar with pears. And right now, we're right in the pear season. It's perfect for this. This with ginger, shallots, and pears with the apple cider vinegar. You let it sit for a little while, a good month or whatever, and then you remove the fruit and add, the sugar. It is a wonderful, savory drink for those that might like savory style drinks, or this also works great as a salad dressing. I love it when you can combine and have several things to do with something. Ooh, it's great on a salad, it's great this way, it's great this way. But for those that might like a Gibson cocktail with cocktail onions, some people date back a long time on that one right there. But it's just savory, and it's a wonderful one that can be paired up with different recipes that you might have on hand. Lilith Botanical Gin. This is my how to make wonderful gin for people who do not like gin. And I named her Lilith. Actually, I'm a musician as well, and I happen to attend every Lilith fair that ever happened at Chicago and Detroit. And it was, women who weren't going to succumb to men. And that's Lilith right there. So a lot of people have come to me and said, I don't like gin. And I said, let me guess. You went in your parents' liquor cabinet when you were 15, 16 years old, and you took what they didn't drink, probably something really sad in the back, probably gin, and you mixed it with something sickly sweet, and you made a poor choice. And they look at me and they go, how'd you know? And I'm like, because we all did it. You're going to have to get over it, So get over the fact of tasting juniper berry. Tastes like a Christmas tree. Well, of course it does. Yes, I understand that. But that is also sad gin. Some of the really good gins out there have phenomenal flavors with beautiful, balanced juniper berry. A lot of them are local Michigan. I mean, I can think of 3 or 4 great gin brands that are made here in the state that actually they're using all the botanicals they find. They hire a forager. They've hired me to do these things before, to come up with the botanical formulas of things that are native to their area, and even using some local conifer trees, that are incorporated in the distillation process. So it's one of those things where I say, look to it. But for those that can't get over that, I have a way for you to make that happen. I created this botanical gin formula to make it out of vodka, to be infused about 8 hours, and then you remove it. I hid the juniper berry behind cinnamon, of all things. The predominant botanical is juniper berry, which is what, in order to call it a gin, but I also have coriander seeds. I have cardamom in there. I have 1 cinnamon stick, and only because I wanted it to come up above the juniper berry to make sure that people could enjoy it without tasting it. I added orange peel and lemon peel. 5 botanicals. Keep it simple. And I infuse that with whatever your choice of vodka. Not Everclear. We're leaving Everclear alone. That's sad swill. Anything on the bottom shelf is sad swill. You do not want to do that. Go up medium, I mean, I'm not saying you got to go super premium. I get it. We all have, livelihoods and we have to watch what we're spending. I completely get that. I don't know if you have a Costco up here quite yet. Okay. Well, when you do, you want the Kirkland vodka. It is very good, but there's a lot of great brands out there that you can find that are right in the middle price point right there that you will love out there. So the Lilith Gin is great. I keep it around at home all the time for that reason, because I want to have that little extra something. And as I mentioned, for you folks, you got to drink the Switzel today. So it arrived here in the United States, and it was called Haymaker's Punch at that point and today was perfect. Maybe it was my fault that it's 100 degrees outside because of this drink. But in early colonial days, the hay balers would drink this, and they always had this, but I'm going to give you a little heads up on this. You'll like this. Early Switzel, Haymaker's Punch, was usually heavily laden with rum. So probably that's where the molasses came from the original recipe that I flipped out with honey. But I went on and did a little rabbit hole searching off of it. Come to find out that our early Congress, when they used to go and be in sessions, kept Switzel that was heavily laden with rum. So my thought is we need to just lock them all in there and give them the Switzel that is heavily laden with rum and tell them none of them can come out until they can kind of get along. So that's my idea of, I'm like, all right, y'all ain't coming out until you figure that out. Oh, you need more? No problem. Okay, all right. Motherwort, for many of you, one of the first botanicals I got to play with was motherwort. I learned this from Sierra Bigham from Bare Earth Herbal. She's in Kingsley. And I went on an herb walk with her, and she told me about motherwort. Motherwort's my best friend. Motherwort is like getting a big hug from your maternal figure. Motherwort calms. She is a heart tonic as well. So if you're on blood thinners or anything, big no-no. If you're pregnant, big no-no. In fact, you should be checking with your doctor on all of these just to be sure that all is well. But motherwort is calming. She just takes the edge off. We all have anxiety these days, and our own paths of anxiety that we have, whether it be whatever it is you're experiencing. Motherwort helps a lot. I make her in tincture form, and what do I use? I use the Lilith Gin that I've got here, and why? Motherwort is extremely bitter. She's more bitter than Campari out there. She's more bitter than any quadruple IPA out there. You just want to claw it off your tongue. She's that bitter. You're just like, whoa! So what I did was by making the Lilith Gin Botanical, that sweetened it up a little bit. An Old Tom Gin out there will sweeten up the motherwort tincture as well. And she's great for just the calming aspect that you can have. And you can make it non-alcoholic version as well with the vegetable glycerin or the apple cider vinegar. Your choice. Life's about choices. So pick that. So that is one of the things that, it is just an incredible thing out there. She grows in the wild. One time I was on my way to Bliss Fest. I live in Kalamazoo, and I was on my way to Bliss Fest in Northport. And we're driving along, and we end up at this little gas station, stopping to get gas. And I look over at where the big garbage the big bins are, and I saw next to the garbage bin was an old computer that was broken in half, and what was growing out of it? It was a motherwort plant that was at least this big, and I thought, look at motherwort growing out of the motherboard over there. I'm like, wow, she will grow anywhere. She grew next to my back door last year, and she started growing there. Of all things, she started growing on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side was a giant dandelion. And they were both growing in concrete. And I looked at them both, and I'm like, well, that's your house now. You can stay there. I don't have a problem with that. Next thing I know, my motherwort plant, by this time last year, was as tall as me, and I'm 5'7". And I thought, well, I'm going to leave her like that because then people think I'm a witch, and then they won't come knock on the door. I like that idea. So she was there, and they say that motherwort will grow anywhere where she's needed. Well, for some reason, I have basically a 1/4 acre of motherwort. And so for that reason, the way I look at it, I'm supposed to tell people and provide for them with that, to say, oh, you don't have motherwort? Come over. You can dig up a plant. Oh, here's things that, you can go dry this and turn this into a tincture or a tea, whatever your choice is. Because life's about choices. Remember that. It's all about that. So, motherwort's a great one. Now, through successes, you can have some failures, and then the failures can turn around and turn into successes. I have a recipe in the book. It's called the Root Note Soda Concentrate. What happened was I was working with a distillery, and we were trying to create a root distillate, is a good way to put it. So I was looking into what I wanted the flavors to happen, and I started infusing and working with the spirit with it, and guess what? It was awful. It was awful. I couldn't fix it. But everything in this recipe was supposed to work, but it just was not working with the spirit. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to put this on the back burner on simmer. We're not going to have it on high. We'll leave it on simmer just, for a few months, and I'll figure something out, how to work with this. Later on, I thought about it, and I thought, what if I turn this into a syrup? And then I could add carbonation bubbles, and then it becomes a soda, and then you can mix it with the spirit. Because in the meantime, we had scratched the idea of the root distillate at that point. So it worked. It was perfect. I couldn't believe it. And what it tastes like is it tastes like a really light, effervescent root beer. Root beer, I love root beer, but it's a little heavy for me, just my personal choice. So I love the flavors of it, but I just can't handle more than a couple of sips. It's kind of like a stout beer. I just can't do it. I love it, respect it, think it's wonderful. It's just not for me. I can taste and get all the nuances. So in the Root Note soda, I included sassafras and sarsaparilla, wild cherry bark, burdock root, 1 star anise. Again, remember, we're going to throw in a little something to make them wonder what it's all about. Dry ginger, lemon, brown sugar, blackstrap molasses, which blackstrap molasses is different than grandma's molasses. Grandma's molasses tastes like a cookie. Blackstrap molasses is going to have a little bitter sense to it, and I've actually seen rum, a blackstrap molasses that's made from blackstrap molasses. So with this one, I also decided to, instead of using, I did use the brown sugar, but I wanted to really kind of keep it like user-friendly. So I used agave nectar to kind of sweeten it up. Agave nectar comes from, the agave plant. It's definitely plant-based. Has an earthy flavor. It's kind of like an earthy honey, but it's also low glycemic for folks who might be diabetic. So I wanted something that everybody could enjoy, and still have it, but not sickly sweet. So it's perfect. And as we know, I believe, is it sassafras, local, Michigan? It grows like everywhere, like you can smell it, so I wanted to include that as well, to be able to find these things out in the wild to incorporate into your beverage program. We'll talk about tonic water real quick. I hated tonic water until I started making my own. Why? Back in the day, you did tonic off the gun. At a bar, not the best. What would happen is I would get that funky, bitter bite, artificial bite right here. And it was the artificial that I was tasting. So I never could get around that. Then we also have some wonderful artisan-styled tonic waters out there now, but they're kind of expensive. So I thought, I'm going to start making my own. I ran across a company that was making a tonic syrup. So you add the syrup and add the bubbles to it, because if there's one thing I never liked was you open the tonic and have a drink or two out of it, and then next thing you know, it's flat. Your bubbles are gone. So I thought if I create a syrup, and you use a little bit, you can add your bubbles to it, and you would be beautiful, effervescent carbonation happening at that point. So what I did was we're going to take it an extra game up above. I made a smoked grapefruit and sage tonic, which is fantastic on its own. But if you want to do a little something, it is great with gin. It's great with vodka. But for those of you who love tequila, it's kind of like a light, fizzy Paloma out there, So that is something to consider to have on hand, And making it is next to nothing. I mean, it's super simple. There is one thing in it, cinchona bark. Now, you will have to order that. I highly doubt that your food store, your health food store, I don't think that they'll have it. Mine do not. I have to order on Amazon. But it's cinchona bark, and that is where quinine is extracted from. So you can make it, and it also helps, cured yellow fever and malaria in the jungles back in the 16 and 1700s, which is why England even had it there. But it also was included with the gin and the lime, to be able to medicinal purposes, to get out into the jungle and stay well. A lot of us are having trouble sleeping. We are all waking up. The older I get, the more I wake up. And it's starting to really play on me. So when I do run into some, situations where I have too much on my mind and I can't get my mind to calm down, if there's one thing I've turned to is golden milk. And this is what is known as in the Ayurvedic. You will find this in the East Indian Ayurvedic wellness, golden milk, turmeric, black pepper, and like coconut oil. All of that plays together with a chemical reaction of alchemy into that pot to make you feel like a natural melatonin. It calms you down. It gets your brain to stop acting like there are kids that are jumping on a couch that have just eaten a bunch of donuts or sugar smacks. One of those scenarios. Golden milk is great. It contains ginger root, peppercorns, vanilla, cinnamon, turmeric, coconut milk, coconut oil. And then I sweeten it with either honey or agave. And having this before you go to bed, do it about a half hour to 40 minutes before you go to bed, and make sure you're going to bed. And why I say that, I had made a big batch of this for a demonstration I was doing, and I still had a few tasks that I needed to do afterwards. Well, there was about this much left that didn't fit in the jar. And so I downed it really quick. I'm like, well, I'm not going to throw that away. And I was like, oh, that's spot on, great flavor. Within 15 minutes, I went, oh no, my brain started just all the tasks that I had to do were gone, all the things, and I'm like, oh, she works, but I didn't want that to happen right now. So as it turned out, I'm like, well, you know what? Nothing happens by mistake. Apparently I was supposed to do that. Apparently I'm supposed to go to bed right now and get a really good night's rest and get up a little earlier and do my things in the morning, which bartenders don't do. We're not used to that. We're used to night owl. We eat at weird. Even 30 years into it, I still eat at weird times. And I will rip up a Little Debbie snack cake in a New York minute. There's a raccoon that lives in here. I swear, from being behind the bar, any food you want to be the bartender's best friend, bring them food. Always. They will be your best friend. Oh my gosh, French fries? Chili? Oh, you do that, and I tell you got them around your finger then at that point, my friends. So the other thing toddy teas are just an incredible thing, and the term toddy comes to us, it's derived from the East Indian word taddy, meaning fermented sap. So that meant by adding spirit, teas, wild-crafted teas. You can add the ginger honey syrup. So a few things that I definitely recommend. Mullein leaf. It's out there everywhere. I saw it when I was driving here. Mullein leaf is great for upper respiratory and bronchial. Helped me when my first bout of COVID, when I was more congested, and I had that, and boy, it'll clear you up real fast. Stinging nettle tea. You have nettle everywhere. You can eat nettle, A, and it's delicious, and B, it's great for antihistamines. It's great for, seasonal allergies, all of that to turn into and dry and turn into a tea. Now, the other one that I highly recommend, and boy, you all have it everywhere, is white pine needle. And white pine needle, number one, the white pine is the state of Michigan tree. And it is everywhere up here. So I'm going to give you a little heads up on this. If you have a cold, you take about a handful of the white pine needles and put them in a cup with hot water and let them steep for 8 to 10 minutes. After that, remove the needles and then drink it. You're going to have more vitamin C in that cup than you do in orange juice. It's also going to help with anything upper respiratory to help you feel better. And you can make them into tinctures. And when I refer to tinctures as opposed to bitters, tinctures are one thing. And that is how strong that is. One item that is going in that botanical. Bitters are going to have several different flavoring compounds as well as bittering agents that will go into it. So if you can make a white pine needle tincture, you can make a tea, any of that to have on hand. And you can make it with spirit or without. Again, use the vegetable glycerin. It's great. When using vegetable glycerin, when making tinctures and bitters, one thing that I say is use a 70-30 cut. 70% of the vegetable glycerin with 30% water and add that. Then make your tincture, because vegetable glycerin is it's like sickly sweet. It's like the viscosity of honey. And it's super sweet. So by cutting it, it's going to give it a little bit more of a creamy mouthfeel. It's not going to be sickly sweet. It's easier to work with. And then you can make your tincture from there. So I highly recommend having that. White pine, you've got it everywhere out there. Utilize it to your advantage. It's amazing how many different cultures have used the white pine throughout history, dating back several thousands of years. Whether you were, Nordic Scandinavian, the white pine was there. It was here on indigenous land, and the indigenous people used that, to help them, with upper respiratory, with colds and flus and things like that, and as well as using the sap as kind of almost a rudimentary suture before we had stitches. It could heal a wound. It could bring together, both sides, and it can actually, so if you're ever stuck out in the woods and you got a big cut, look for the sap. That's always a good one to have on hand. So drink the wild. It is. What it is, celebrating what we have outside and giving thanks to Mother Earth for giving us this opportunity. I'm the first one to say, wildness, it is a perennial within us, dormant as a hard-shelled seed, awaiting the fire or flood that awakens again. That is a quote from Gary Snyder of, Practice of the Wild, basically. So one of the things, and what I say is may all of this be a fire or a flood onto you. Awaken and taste the wild out there. So and this book is dedicated to all of you folks out there. I'm an edutainer, and what I'm supposed to do, I'm the traveling elixir fixer. I am supposed to teach you these things and allow you and get you out there to begin your journey of learning what is out there, and embracing the wild out there. So I want to thank everybody for coming and hanging out with me, and a huge shout out to the Peter White Library for having this. And interesting how the whole thing came into play. I was doing the drinks at the Michigan Library Association Awards ceremony, and I was upstairs and I was serving the Switzel, and we were all having a good time. And about January is when I had a wonderful fellow reach out to me asking if I would be willing to come up to the UP on a book tour. And I said, yes. My mother always said, go where you're invited. And so I figured I was invited. And I want to tell you, I have had my first day out here. I'm having a wonderful time. I'm loving getting to know the upper hand of our wonderful state and what we have, and the kindness and incredible human beings you folks have up here. So I'm going to send you all the love and, wild wellness out there for everybody. And if you're ever downstate, come. I'm the gal in Kalamazoo is a good way to put it. So cheers to you all. Drink the wild. Thanks so much. And with that, I'll sip my Switzel here. It's my time. Mm-hmm.